Are we discussing also the ordinance to transfer policies, or are we just talking about fees now?
I think it's all we go.
It's
Is it a big,
the three
we're
next
talking
three
about the big
items.
picture?
Yes.
Okay. All right, on the transfer policy, and some of this might be in here, I may be missing it, but, okay, NRC was just in here to transfer property that they own, so they took out excess meters and moved them. Okay, so I can understand that policy where they're never gonna be used, it was redivided, and they're excess meters and transferring it, it's fine. Now, are you gonna allow the transfer of the fees from a, let's say, defunct subdivision into another subdivision that have different owners? Where there are, and I'll tell you specifically in Canyon Crest, there are, in essence, abandoned subdivisions owned by the bank. Now, is the bank going to be able to sell those at some discounted rate to another developer to move on another subdivision?
No, the prepaid ordinance 2 fees stay with that parcel until until a developer comes up with a map for that parcel, and we're able to determine whether or not there's even enough ordinance 2 fees for that parcel.
I know, but I'm just saying that they come in with a parcel and then they want to transfer. So I mean, you've got, so you can't transfer them from an existing ordinance 2. So when our NRC came in and transferred, didn't they transfer the ordinance 2 fees to another property?
That was within the same subdivision.
Okay, so you can't do it across ownerships?
According to these, you could.
Yes,
Not ownerships.
It can't be across ownerships.
It can or can't?
Cannot.
Well, what?
So he can't transfer his ordinance 2 fees to me.
Correct.
Yeah, paragraph 9 of the policy states that any attempted transfer of ordinance 2 fees which does not comply with the conditions set forth herein shall be void. So if somebody, a developer, a bank, did want to go try and transfer them on the black market, so to speak, whatever, no, that's...
They make a gray market for ordinance 2 fees.
If they owned another parcel somewhere and they wanted to transfer to that, they could.
So, but in essence, somebody could come in, that developer could go in to that bank and say, I want to buy this subdivision from you at some big discounted rate, then they then own those ordinance 2 fees and could transfer them.
That's true
correct.
regardless of whether this policy exists or not. I mean, anytime a bank comes in and forecloses on a property, or an investor comes in and buys a property, they're going to buy all of the pertinent rights to that property, which would include an ordinance.
With ordinance 2 fees, they own it all. It's an asset of that property.
Correct.
But
So
the bank can't sell. The bank can't sell just that portion of the asset. They'd have to sell all the property to. And so the water board wants to see complete ownership of all rights to that property, not just the water rights or the ordinance 2 fee rights.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
for that reason and several other reasons that could potentially harm a third party if pertinent rights were transferred off of the property when a bank had a trustee on the property or something else like that.
Let's say a developer has 2 projects, one's selling really well, one isn't. He decides to take all the ordinance 2 fees from the poorly selling project and move them to the good selling project to save himself some money. Is that allowed?
Well,
Under this scenario, I don't see anything prohibiting that.
well, if he has 2 projects, he's probably already paid ordinance 2 fees. Well, he probably has already paid ordinance 2 fees for both projects, so he would have to file an amended map for the old property, reduce the number of lots by whatever number he wants to transfer to the other property, and have to do a final map, an amended final map for that. So theoretically it's possible, but there's a lot of hoops he'd have to jump through.
It's not likely, because the ordinance 2 fees have to be paid before the original map improvement plans are even done. So if there's a lot out there to be sold, it's already had the fees paid on both of them. Yeah, the intent
You want to take
of,
the fee off of the excess lots.
yeah,
Correct.
yeah, if they amended the map and they got rid of a lot, this allows them to move it because they would have paid on something they're not using now.
There's also additional restrictions if you look at the policy. You know, for example, this isn't going to be an open-ended thing where somebody can come back 10 years later and say, hey, I had a project 10 years ago I paid ordinance 2 fees on. It's within 1 year of when the ordinance 2 fees became unusable. So in the situation we've talked about the most, where an amended final map is recorded where it reduces the number of lots, they'd have 1 year from that period to seek a refund of ordinance, or not a refund, but a transfer of ordinance 2 fees, because, yeah. And the ordinance 2 fees are not refundable under any circumstances.
Just to clarify the last point, so you really have protections in there, not have a gray market for ordinance 2 fees, and it's more or less a transfer from owner to owner then, based on adjustments. That's
Correct.
Is that the?
And I gotta go, I'll talk to you guys later.
All
Thanks,
right,
Kenny.
and thank you.
But that's the focus of this program, is to basically allow them to move unused or somehow abandoned.
Correct,
because of
if that could be
revisions.
done without harming the district or another party, and if they have full rights and authority to that property, that's correct.
And actually, when we finally get all of that cleaned up in that north end, we probably wouldn't have, I mean, that's what caused most of this, because of the different ownerships, the bankruptcies and all of that that's come on. So I don't see in the future where this would be that.
Well,
big.
there's some properties up there that are different
Right.
states of repair. Some have the water on them, or have the ordinance 2 fees paid, but no roads, and so they're, this is all evolving out. And it would be behoove, if it was an asset to the bank, to strip off those ordinance 2 fees and sell them to somebody, they could get something out of it. I just want to make sure we got that covered on it.
Yeah, absolutely
Work
not.
our way
What
through
about,
that.
the potential loophole I see is somebody's got excess ordinance 2 fees. Another guy wants to buy him, he gives him 1% of his LLC long enough to transfer those ordinance 2 fees. How do you combat that?
Well,
We're talking about ownership, are we talking about a certain percentage or any kind of ownership is the question?
the policy, as well as the application that would go along with the policy, state that they have to provide sufficient evidence of ownership of the property, that they have full authority on behalf of that LLC in the situation you're giving. So we specifically identify like a resolution, authorized by the, required membership percentage of that LLC to.
You have to show he's the managing member.
Correct. And we've talked with staff about searching the Secretary of State records and all of that, so, yeah, I mean, I think there's safeguards in here that it's not going to be abused. If there's a legitimate developer in the situation that comes up and it makes sense, then,
There's always some loophole,
Mr. Levitt, I believe, is.
Well, I just have a question on, so on the fees, if I get this right, so say we amended 10 lots in that subdivision. We're gonna pay $350 for the map plus $75 for each lot, right? So we're at, what, $1,100. And then on the ordinance 2 fees, we're gonna pay $1,000 plus another additional $75 per lot
to transfer.
to transfer, right?